In this section, we're going to talk about employment testing being used more and more all the time from both small and medium companies to certainly large companies have used employment testing for many, many, many years. You'd be hard pressed to find a large company that you're not going to have to take some type of employment testing. So in this section, we're going to talk about, why are they using employment testing? We're going to cover some of the key types of employment testing from personality tests to case study type tests, and then also how to overcome it in some of those tests and, to help you be successful with those exams and tests that are out there to help move you along in your interview process or your job search process. Because we don't want to have a test trip you up after you've done all this great work and then at the end they give you an exam and that you don't score well in that and it just trips you up and ends it right there for you, right at close to the finish line. So let's talk about in this lesson about employment testing just a little bit in general terms and why do the companies do it. So why do companies do employment testing? There's really one main reason why they do it, and that's to screen you out. I'm sorry, but it's true. They're not usually doing employment testing to find who's the best at taking a test or who has the best highest scores or a certain type of personality, a little bit of that, but mostly it's like who doesn't fit, who doesn't think well on their feet or who doesn't or who is not able to answer some, maybe basic math type things or whatever it might be. It's a reason to screen you out. So understand that's the point, the point of an employment test. And that's why sometimes you can get some kind of employment testing right at the time you do an application, like an online application. They might have a mini 10-question type of employment test or a little bit longer in some cases, especially around personality and stuff, where they're trying to get a feel for the type of people that traditionally fit in the job they're hiring for. So a person, maybe they're looking for someone who can work under stress, because it's a very stressful position. So they might have you take a pre-employment test. Once you submit your application, it'll all of a sudden pop up in the online application process to take this personality test. And then based on that, it might say, oh, you can't handle stress well. And so they won't even, go further with they'll just screen you right out. You won't even get an interview or anything. Maybe not even a response, which I think is very rude, but you might not even get a response. And so that's where it sometimes occurs at the time of application. But it's a little bit more rare for that. It usually occurs after interviews. It's usually after they've narrowed down the candidates. So maybe they've interviewed 10 people, maybe 15 people, that would be a lot, but maybe they've interviewed 5 people, whatever it is, 5 to 10 people, whatever it might be, they've done interviews, and maybe they've settled on 1 or 2, maybe they've settled on 2 really good candidates, maybe 3, right? And then you want them to do as another factor as far as evaluating these candidates, in addition to going through a whole big round of interviews, is they want them to do employment testing. And this is why it usually occurs after the interview process, because they're using some might have their own internal testing, but usually they're using a service, based around some, statistically valid, psychological valid type of testing, that they're using the service for that, and that costs money for the company to do it. So it's very expensive to have 100 people take a personality test or a case study or whatever it might be, an expensive testing where it might be very expensive, but to have 2 or 3 do it, that's not a big deal, especially when you're now just getting to the end for an employer to decide who is the best candidate. Given that testing might help as far as either eliminate candidates, though I'm not in favor of eliminating candidate based on a test, but people do, or it might give them a reason to have a follow-up interview to ask some clarifying questions about that person based on what the test spits back.